My truck's tires crunched through the slush and snow as I pulled out of the driveway under an onyx sky. I drove down the main coastal drag. My knuckles were white as ghosts on the steering wheel as my dad's truck snaked its way through the darkness. I leaned in, squinting. God, no freaking streetlights in this town. Gnawing my cheek, I hoped that I wouldn't nosedive right into the heaps of snow that crowded the road. I didn't have time for that. I had an important meeting to get to, and I just can't be late. The remnants will be waiting for me. My left knee pulsed like a tattoo needle. I thought about turning back right then and there, but I knew that this particular engagement wasn't one that I could avoid. You can run from the remnants all you want to, but you can't hide. They'll track you down from afar like an animal, slowly and inconspicuously. Meeting them was inevitable. The sour taste of indigestion burned in my mouth. I kept driving. Even through the midnight void, the primary colors of all the wooden homes flashed past my periphery. Blue, red, yellow. Once sunburst and infused with cheer, these places were now chipped and weathered from decay. My tired bones ached. This place I once called home was nothing but hollow waves crashing in now. My foot, it pressed down on the gas pedal. I fidgeted in my seat, and my seatbelt, it wasn't even buckled, but then again, it hadn't worked in years. Waste of time wearing that thing, my dad used to say through a furrowed brow. I felt suddenly a pressure in my temples. The smell of dirt and gasoline swirling with salt air filled my nostrils. Choking down a grapefruit-sized lump in my throat, I kicked aside a couple of empty Coca-Cola bottles. Couldn't even throw away as trash. God, no self-respect. Death itself can reach inside your rib cage and rip your heart out and feed it to the wolves, and yet somehow the person whose sudden departure that left your chest barren can still drive you nuts from beyond the grave. I held my breath. Click, click, click. The truck's blinker echoed in my head, and I turned right. Nausea was coiling up my stomach as I made my way down the sloping hill. The old payphone on the corner stood out like a solemn relic of the past. My fingers danced uncomfortably. Even if the thing worked, who would I call? I don't even know a single person's number right offhand. Massive warehouses with rusted metal siding came into view. The stench of fish laced with diesel and gut punch. As a looming tower over a lobster trap crept by, the roar of the tide rolled through my bloodstream. Louder, louder, louder. I startled myself as I slammed on the brakes, my hand shaking. I put the truck in park. The ominous low rumble of the engine purred in the quiet dread of night. My mouth, it was like sandpaper. Briny mist sparkled through the floodlights above, illuminating the slick, wet wood of the wharf. Standing in a singular line in the truck's headlights, the remnants were there. They were waiting for me, just like they said they would. Crawling with goosebumps my body, it ran cold. Their hands clasped. All 6 of the remnants were dressed in ivory, floor-length peacoats with pants and gloves to match. Their faces were obscured by black beekeeper-type veils that draped over their wide-brimmed hats. No one made a move for quite some time. The leather of my seat, it squeaked as I carefully inched forward, peering at the remnants through the windshield, my head tilted. "Do I know you?" The town of only 1,000, it was possible, but on the other hand, I don't know. My jaw clenched as my shoulders rose up to my ears. Are they even human? Just then, the tallest of the remnants, standing left of the center, extended his hand. I knew it was time. The keys jingled as I turned off the truck, leaving the remnants in a partial shadow where my headlights once shone. Feeling as though I was floating outside my body, I opened the door and I stepped out. I approached. My boots crunched, inch by inch, onto the sand grains scattered over semi-melted ice. The wind, it hissed abusively and cold, snapping against my cheeks like frozen rubber bands. As I got closer to the remnants, those unnerving statues, I could feel my throat. It was closing in. I was inhaling through a pinhole as they stood in their single file line, like some kind of threshold between heaven and hell. A few steps ahead, I stopped. They didn't budge. They didn't even move, one little iota. The graveyard of fishing vessels behind them bobbed in the abyss. The tall remnant extended his hand out just a little bit further. My words hardly were able to come out of my mouth, and they shook. "What do you want?" "I'm here." "What is it that you want?" The tall one cocked his head as if the answer was obvious. "The keys." I let out a small gasp when his voice came out tinny and distorted like a transmission. I clutched the keys a little bit tighter. "Why?" The tall one lowered his hand, gliding it towards me, biting down on my tongue. I shuffled back, but he had his white-gloved hand over mine before I could even remotely make any kind of run for it. Face to veil, he gripped the keys. "The truck is ours now." A deafening frequency rang in my ears. Ow! With my hands protecting my head, I momentarily went into soft focus. I swore I could make out the remnant's facial features through that screen that concealed his face. He ripped the keys away from me. I wrapped my arms around my pained torso once he pressed down on the fob. The truck doors locked loudly, like they were slamming, like a jail cell. As the remnant went back to his place, my face flooded with lava, saline pooling in my eyelids. I snarled, "How the fuck do you expect me to get out of here then?" In unison, all 6 of them motioned to the open water. The moon painted the jet-black canvas with the iridescent silver. I laughed out my nerves. "What? You want me to swim home? Oh yeah, that's rich." They all nodded. 1, 2, 3. I couldn't hold the heaviness on my shoulders anymore. It fell from my body brick by brick, knees wobbling, tears dripping off my chin with a whisper. "I'm not ready to go in there yet." They remained motionless with The thunder of a wave rolling in the distance. The tall one spoke. His voice cracked like a weak radio signal. We know. The floodlights above flickered. My panicked breath, it rasped through the stillness, and just as I teetered on the line between fight or flight, the remnants pounced on me. My screams, they split the night sky open. Kicking and thrashing, I fought like a rabid beast, but their grip, it was like crocodile jaws, snapping shut. They hauled me to the wharf's edge. As they tipped me over face down towards the ocean's surface, a rippling blanket of spilled ink stared back at me. That is, until, oh my God! My insides felt scooped clean. My jaw dropped open from gravity and from its own exhausted weight. From the water below, a ghostly reflection smiled at me from the mirrored sea. Only it wasn't my reflection. Dad? Dad? You swim north to the next wharf. The remnant's voice brought me back to reality. My dad's reflection was gone. I snorted up the inky snot that dripped from my face. That's over 6 miles away! Their fingers pressed me harder as the tall one came in close to my ear. Through his haunted, walkie-talkie voice, said, "We will meet you there." Each and every sound was sucked into a vacuum as I was suspended through time and space, but it didn't last long. With an aggressive heave, the remnants pushed me back and tossed me right into the murderous cold of the Atlantic. I clawed the open air for dear life as I free fell, but it wasn't long until darkness. A million air bubbles left me as I rolled and tumbled in the murky deep, unsure of which way was up or down, reminiscent of how I'd been feeling ever since my dad's departure. I unzipped my bulky winter coat and slid it off my shoulders. The extra weight removed, I propelled myself up. Holy crap! I hope I'm going to make it up there. I hope I'm going up. My lungs burst open as I pierced through the water's edge, sucking in oxygen. I treaded the frozen, freezing water as I darted left to right, trying to orient myself. Rocking like a boy, I craned my neck. The wharf, it had just been expelled. The wharf I had just been expelled from was like a tiny porcelain ornament in the distance. The remnants stood there in their single file line like figurines. Kicking my legs below the surface, I rubbed my face with my hands, revealing my eyes. The wharf was now getting further away. I coughed out water disgustingly, saturated with salt. I need to get further away from them. Like fiery embers, a strangely calm undercurrent warmed my chest. Planting my feet firmly in the nothingness, I turned north and started swimming towards the next wharf. I pushed the water behind me, stroke by stroke, for what could have been several hours, or maybe just a few minutes. Time bends like that when you're being tossed around in the current, fighting hypothermia and wondering, what the heck is swimming under me? The ocean is mesmerizing and terrifying like that. She will leave you in absolute awe, but might also kill you in the process. Such is life, I guess. I stopped. The caverns of my heart felt like they were being pushed open with a vice. Turning on my back, I spread out like a starfish and floated, struggling to catch my breath. And as my teeth chattered, I swore that I could taste the flesh of my lifeless lips turning blue. Am I dying? Phlegm cracked in my windpipe as I inhaled. The sky, it was saturated in milky white stars, and they blinked one by one as if to illuminate a sort of a celestial connect the dots. Some people might call those constellations, Well, I never see such a cosmic dance in the city. Well, or rather, I'd never see such a sight unless I was looking all the way up from down here at rock bottom. Wow. As my body laid there weightless, I started to drift, and my eyelids grew heavy. Oh, so heavy, heavier. A beacon of yellow light, it droned over me. Sucking in a sharp breath, I submerged myself in the sea and turned towards the lighthouse. The next wharf was in sight, just past the rocky breakwater that separated the icy churn of the open water from the tranquil harbor. Through the lunacy of my exhaustion, I swore that I heard my dad's voice breeze through one ear and out the other, saying, "Keep going." My nervous system buzzed with electricity. Through gritted teeth, I started swimming, and I didn't stop until a rough wave thrashed and shattered my body against the solid wall of the breakwater. Through moans and groans, I gripped the rocks one by one, and I pulled myself up, ice pellets plummeting my face. I nearly slipped back into the Atlantic, but I ultimately reached the top. On my hands and knees, I scaled the large boulders until I made it safely, finally, to the second wharf. Surrounded by a whole new slew of fishing vessels, I collapsed. The world around me went black. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. I was awoken by the air being sliced by blades. I stood up, blocking the blinding light of the helicopter with my forearm. It was a huge rectangular object tied to its base. As I approached, my mouth went agape as it touched down. My dad's truck! The hooks detached from underneath the vehicle, and the helicopter took off. As though my entire skeleton was broken, I pushed myself up and I limped over as fast as I could. But as a thin line of burnt orange sizzled on the horizon, my limbs locked into place. They were all sitting there, 3 in the front and 3 in the back. The remnants! They were in my dad's truck. I clenched my fists. Fire scorched my abdomen. I marched over and I opened the driver's side door. Or at least I tried. The door was locked. I tried again and again and again. I spun to the other side. It was locked too. The remnants, they didn't make a peep. They didn't even budge. I stepped back. Each breath expanded my entire body. Blood pounded in my head. The seagulls cawed around the cresting morning sun. I threw myself against the vehicle, screaming bloody murder. I pounded the windows with closed fists. Let me in! Come on! Please! Let me in! It's the only thing I have left! They didn't move. I backed away just as the warmth of my own grief dripped onto my collarbone. A rickety putt-putt-putt caught my attention. I turned towards the bay, and the tiniest fishing boat was slowly sputtering its way towards the wharf. Oh, man. I turned my attention towards it. What a rinky-dink little thing. When I looked back, my heart rose into my mouth. The truck and any remnants of it, gone. Wrapping my arms around my shivering body, I examined the seagulls diving for scraps. I closed my eyes, lifting my face towards the energy of the winter sun. It was just time to go home. I kicked a rock most of the way as I dragged my feet along the cracked pavement of the main road. One car would zoom past a few minutes later, and then another. The colorful wooden houses stared at me. I shuddered with a little chuckle. That's creepy. I was kicking my rock, wondering what the townspeople would say about Ted and Barb's daughter walking on the side of the road in February, soaking wet without a coat on. Oh, I could hear them saying it now. Oh, she must be drinking again. Poor girl, she lost her father, you know. The old baseball diamond by the school had a big bubbling snowman built right into the middle of it. He had a partially eaten carrot nose sticking out from his face. Food. What should I make for dinner tonight? I had leftover pasta in the fridge. I could cook some ground beef. I kicked my rock past Dennis and Mary's house. Their window boxes were piled up with snow. It looked so blah without the hot magenta begonias bursting out from them. I'm such a spring-summer person. I breathed out through horsey lips, bored, on my slow meander home, like a kid on a road trip whining. Are we there yet? That's when I heard the violent rev, the truck's engine. My pupils, they grew wide. No. The top of the hill. Just before the downward turn towards my parents' house, there they were. Even more ghastly in the light of day, the remnants in my dad's truck. 3 of them in the front and 3 in back. My heart, it was pounding and clamoring down to the soles of my feet as they all lifted their one hand simultaneously and gave me a wave. Shaking, I lifted my one hand too and waved back. In a silent standoff that seemed to last for a lifetime. Birds chirped, the waves lapped the shore. I raised my arm in surrender. A breeze fluttered through my frozen strands of hair. I held my breath as the tall one slammed on the gas, leaving the stench of burnt tar on the pavement. I barely felt the painful impact when darkness. The truck's tires, they crunched the slush and snow as I pulled out of the driveway. Under an onyx sky, I drove down the main coastal drag. My knuckles, they were white as ghosts on the steering wheel. My dad's truck, it snaked its way through the darkness. I leaned in, squeaking. There are no freaking streetlights in this town.